Today we will be looking at a cult classic filmed in my second home, Japan. A curious mix of low-budget hokum and high-tension horror that could have been ripped straight out of a nightmare. From 1959, it's The Manster. I'm Tyler Martin, and this is Monsters from the Id. American foreign news correspondent Larry Stanford is just about due to head back home to his wife after a long stint in Japan. But before that, he has one last assignment, to interview scientist Robert Suzuki in his secluded laboratory near a volcano. Suzuki's area of focus is human evolution. Unbeknownst to Larry, the doctor has conducted a couple of experiments whose goal was to effect evolutionary changes by means of a chemical injection. Experiments that ended in horrible failure. Suzuki sees in his interviewer a perfect test subject for the latest iteration of his secret formula, which he administers after sedating the unsuspecting reporter. Soon, the conscientious Larry begins acting erratically. His boss, Ian, who also happens to be a good friend, grows concerned, but his attempts to get through to Larry are angrily rebuffed. Posing as a gracious host, Suzuki encourages certain behaviors which are starting to come more naturally to his subject. The reckless pursuit of pleasure and impulsive desire, drunkenness, womanizing, even violence. Larry begins a torrid affair with Suzuki's assistant, Tara, and not even the arrival of Larry's heartbroken wife, Linda, is enough to dissuade the once upstanding reporter from his tragic descent into brutality and hedonism. Just as the doctor had hoped, Larry isn't just Larry anymore. Something else is growing inside him and taking control, something that soon manifests itself in truly horrific fashion. Very uneven, yet oddly intriguing, The Manster, also known as The Split, was an American production filmed entirely in Japan, helmed by a pair of Westerners supervising a mostly Japanese crew. As a result, a perceptible Japanese sensibility permeates certain elements like music and art direction, lending a rather unique air to the proceedings. Leading the cast is prolific British actor Peter Dineley, sporting a convincing American accent and carrying the part of reporter Larry Stanford rather well. As plain old Larry, he is charming and affable. As the transformation takes hold, he becomes startlingly unpleasant. Even running around as a mute, two-headed monstrosity, Dineley remains committed every step of the way. Also worth singling out is newcomer Terry Zimmern in the part of the mad scientist's assistant. Zimmern, who is reportedly married to co-director Kenneth Crane, turns in a pretty decent performance as the seductive, conflicted Tara, and it's a shame that this appears to be her only screen credit. Being new to acting, she had to rely on the directors and fellow actors for guidance. In an interview, she recalled co-star Tetsu Nakamura, aka Dr. Suzuki, as a consummate gentleman who offered valuable support during the shoot. They remained friends for years afterward. The police superintendent is played by Japanese-American actor Jerry Ito, whose crowning performance would come in the kaiju classic Mothra as the villain Clark Nelson, with the Manster co-star Nakamura playing his right-hand man. As befits a story about a two-headed monster, the picture was helmed by two directors, both of whom pulled double duty, George Breakston and Kenneth Crane, also serving as producer and editor respectively. Breakston was a former child actor who had appeared in such films as Great Expectations and the Oscar-winning It Happened One Night in 1934. None of his movies as director approached the notoriety of such classic productions, though he certainly got around, producing or directing adventures, crime dramas, and more in such far-flung locales as Kenya, Brazil, and of course Japan. Fellow director Kenneth Crane worked primarily as an editor on films like the Roger Corman-produced Devil's Angels. His other directing credits include 1957's Monster from Green Hell and newly shot scenes for the American release of the controversial Japanese film Half Human. Their work here fluctuates between tepid and uninspired to surprisingly atmospheric, depending on the contents of the scene and perhaps on who was directing. The screenplay by Walter Sheldon is made up largely of standard-issue potboiler stuff, and it's often downright absurd, although the premise itself, as well as a few choice sequences, are truly the stuff of nightmares. The special effects seem a touch ambitious for the modest budget, though again, they really shine in the film's most horrific moments. It is worth noting that the movie has been presented with two endings depending on the release. One ends very abruptly after the final confrontation at the volcanic crater. The other features a brief conclusion, rather silly but offering a stronger sense of finality, in which Ian and Linda reflect on the struggle between the good and the evil in Larry and in us all. This Jekyll and Hyde-inspired theme could have perhaps been addressed more convincingly, As it is, the film seems content to show rather than tell. Ridiculous at times, and existentially terrifying at others, the Manster proves to be a mixed bag, but one that nonetheless had this viewer hooked. No matter how hokey things get, there is a strong sense of atmosphere, and a handful of effective, well-placed scares continues right up to the dramatic climax. As modest horror flicks go, you could do a fair bit worse than The Manster. The Manster may not be the most elegant film of its kind, but I for one can appreciate it for what it is. And I appreciate you in the audience for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe, and consider becoming a channel member. As always, thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time.